remove the passenger side front wheel, use a 22mm socket, take the lug nuts off, pull the wheel off. Take this push pin out. We need to remove this fender well, or at least move it out of the way. Just use a trim tool. Pop that out. Take these Phillips head screws out. Use a Phillips head screwdriver. Grab the inner fender well. Pull it down to the side. Now we can access the crank bolt in case we have to turn the engine. You can pull the battery cover off. There is some push locks on the side. Push those in on both sides. And you want to lift this up, even with the computer on, and just tip it out of the way. Now we'll disconnect the negative side terminal on the battery. Use a 10mm socket. And slide it to the side. Now we're going to remove the engine cover. Start by taking the oil filter cap off. There is a screw right here. Use a T30 socket. Take that screw out. And you can grab the cover, lift up on the front, lift up on the back, and it slides right out. Use a trim tool. Just slide this wiring harness out of here. And we're going to take this cover off. There's a little push pin right here. Use the trim tool, take that push pin out. There's a bolt right here. We're going to take that out, use a 10mm socket. Take that out. Then grab the cover and just slide it out. Just like that. This is where the pump is that we're going to be replacing. We want to bleed off some of the fuel. I'm going to take this cap off here. This is on the fuel line. This is the low pressure fuel line. You just want to bleed off some of the pressure. Pull that off. You're going to put a rag over the line just so fuel doesn't spray everywhere. And then you can use a screwdriver and just try to push on the center where the valve is and just release the pressure. There's a connector on the bottom of the pump. You want to disconnect that. It's in there like this, so you push down on the button right there and slide it out. Just going to put a rag underneath to catch some of the fuel. Then we're going to gently crack this line free. Use a 17mm wrench. You might want to put the rag over so you don't splash any in your eyes in case there's a little pressure in there. Crack that free. Slide that off. Take that bolt out. Use a 15mm socket. Take the bolt out. Then this line can move a little bit. The fuel line, you can move that out of the way a little bit. Now crack this line free. You want to again take a rag and just put it over it, just in case there's any pressure. That's good. This line goes over here, and there's two other fittings. There's one right there and one further back. You want to crack those free as well. Use the same 17 millimeter wrench. And the back one's kind of hard to see, but it's underneath there. Loosen that up, and you can take the fuel line off. Now there's two bolts holding this on the back side and one right here. Take those out. Use a 10 millimeter socket. Take those bolts out. And pull that bolt out. Using a swivel socket on the back side, still 10 millimeter. Try to get that back one out. And get that bolt loosed. And you should be able to grab the pump. And just slide it out. Move this line out of the way. And it slides right out just like that. Where the pump was in the hole, I'm going to take a mirror, and you can see inside there, there's a roller in here, so I can grab it. I'm just going to pull it out, slide it out. You don't want to drop it. It has a roller on it. It looks like that. There is a little nub on the top of it. It's like an alignment pin, and there's a groove in there. And you can see in there, then that's attached to the cam. And what you want is the cam to be flat right there. So there is a special tool that you can use that you put in here, and you put the tool in there, and then you can rotate the engine till you get to the flat spot. Or if you just feel in there and try to feel where the flat spot is, just be careful. You don't want to have your fingers in there when the engine, when you try to turn the engine. So I'm just going to do a little bit at a time. I'm just going to turn the engine and then just feel and make sure it's at that flat spot. Now with a 19 millimeter socket, I'm just going to turn the engine about 10 degrees. Then I'm going to check it, and I got to go about 10 more degrees. You can see in there. And about 5 more degrees, and it should be flat. And that's flat, so that's good. Now I can put that piece back in, line that up with the top. Just slide it back in. And that should be as far down as it can go. I'll put the gasket on. There's already an O-ring around there. If you want, you can put a little bit of oil on the O-ring. That'll help the O-ring go in a little bit. Take the bolts, get the bolts started, at least that bottom bolt. Now we'll line it up, just make sure that hose is out of the way. Very carefully slide it in position. And get the bolt started. You want to evenly tighten down these bolts. Go back and forth. And tighten those down. If you can access a torque wrench in here, or if you can fit a torque wrench, you want to torque these bolts to 11 foot-pounds. When doing this job, you want to replace the fuel lines. Line those up. Get those all somewhat just snug so that the line looks like it's in the right position. And I could start the bottom fuel line as well. Get those all started. Before I torque those down, at least get this bolt started through that back bracket, just so the bracket's lined up. Then all the fuel lines, you want to torque those to 22 foot-pounds. It's a little bit tricky to get in there. Do the best you can. Do the same on the other ones. And make sure you tighten this lower one down, the same 22 foot-pounds. That's good. Now we can tighten this bolt down. And snug that down. Now wipe away any excess fuel. Should be cleaned up pretty good. Underneath, make sure you connect the connector. Line it up. Lock it in place. Just to give me a little more room, I'll just pop this off for the wires right there. And just slide it in place. Put the push pin in, lock it down. And get the bolt started. Tighten it down. Now we can line these retainers up. Push those back in. Secure the wires. Put the cover on. Just line it up. Push the grommets down. Get the bolt started. And tighten it down. Put the oil cap on. Now connect the negative terminal. Line that up. Snug it down with a 10mm socket. Make sure it's snug. And take the cover, flip it over. Just line it up and lock it down. Now get the inner fender well lined up, back in place. Put the push pin right there, lock it down, and get all the screws in. And tighten them down. Now put the wheel on, line it up, put the lug nuts on. Now we're going to torque the lug nuts to 111 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. Now I'm going to turn the key on in the on position, just holding the button down. That's just going to activate the fuel pump. Then I'm going to shut it off. And then holding the brake down, I'm going to step on the brake and try to start the vehicle. And it just took a little bit, but once the fuel gets to the front, you're good to go.